That's the real fear, right? You've built a wealth over a lifetime, and you have one bad thing that happens, right? The tragedies happen. You own a real estate, you own a 20, 30 buildings, and there's a fire, right? And people die. It happens. Do they get everything you've made up until that point? Are they able to take everything you have up until that point? Or you're well insured and you've isolated that risk into an LLC. That limits your downside if something happens. Obviously, we don't want anything terrible to happen to people.
Welcome back, everybody, back to another exciting show, the About That Water podcast, where we help the sandwich generation build strong financial habits so they can not only make money, but spend money and actually enjoy their money with confidence. And today I have an awesome opportunity to bring on somebody who has been dealing with, helping people with LLCs, estate planning, business entities, and so much more. And I really want to bring in this particular topic because I know a lot of you out there have kids and you want to get them installed into businesses. And I figured, why not learn how to do it the right way the first time and get it done? So thank you so much, Jonathan, for coming through.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, man. I really appreciate it. I'm a sandwich generation. I got,
Nice.
Kids, they're out of college now, but then, aging parents and parents passing away and dealing with their estates, also an entrepreneur, so I definitely appreciate what it is you're doing. And I'm really excited to be here and help your listeners with starting their businesses and whatever else it is we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've noticed listening to your journey is that you've been running around all of this. So you didn't start off to be an attorney. Like, what did you want to be when you wanted to grow up?
Yeah. That was the question, right? It has been quite a journey. Undergraduate degree in English. I love to write. I love to read. I love to closely examine other people's work. Got out of college and couldn't find a job with an English major, useless major perhaps, and went into transportation logistics. And so I worked for DHL, UPS, and Airborne Express, and was an operations manager for Manhattan. So huge operations, lot of people, dealing with 3 different unions, dealing with a lot of managers that were working for me even at a young age. And my journey there was really about being generally unhappy with that line of work. It was very challenging because of the hours, and I didn't see my path to great financial success or a great family life, work-life balance. I don't think I could achieve that there. So I made a change and started getting my MBA. Was doing it at night, and then at the same time made a transition into the sales side of those businesses, being a national account manager. And when I graduated with my MBA, I went to work for a hedge fund and was sourcing or finding companies for the hedge fund to invest in. And they were micro cap, usually publicly traded, but they were sometimes companies that were private looking to do some sort of public offering. Was very successful there, moved to raising capital for the hedge fund, raised a lot of money for the hedge fund. Maybe got a little too big for my britches, but went out and started my own hedge fund. Nice. Unfortunately, my timing wasn't great. I had some partners and we hit the financial crisis and had, my life was financial life, had some issues, pulled through. And at that time I was living on the East Coast, made a move to Colorado and ended up being a financial advisor with Wells Fargo Advisors. So I was securities licensed, was insurance, was selling insurance products, whole life policies and annuities and those sorts of things. And then I was unhappy again. And maybe it's, that every 10 years I got to change careers. I decided that law school was right for me and being a lawyer. So I stopped working. I built some, so I call it optionality in my life. I had enough resources where I could stop working and still, survive. Things may have been a little tight, but still survived. And then graduated law school, 2.5 years, was top 10% of my class. I treated it I was one of the oldest students, full-time students. But my teachers appreciated me. And then I passed the bar. I was the last group to take the bar before the pandemic. And so I have not been a lawyer that long, going on 5 years here. But during that period of time, I think what I bring from my clients is real world business knowledge, having invested in them, having worked with folks who are high net worth individuals how did you make your money, right? You're real estate, you started companies, you were the CEO, you're just a hard worker, you're right place, right time, inherited wealth, so on and so forth. And also seeing those difficulties that they had when they're part of that sandwich generation. Our clients tend to look like ourselves. And, they've got kids. They're worried about, do I put money into a 529 plan, right? Yeah. How do I manage my the ability to get financial aid? How much do I devote to my own retirement? I may be inheriting money. What about my estate plan? All of these things. And so I took my real world experience in all of those different areas and was able to apply it in the law now. But it's I'm a strange kind of lawyer. I guess we could talk about that another time. But my practice is focused exclusively on this, right? I'm not a generalist. I focus on asset protection. I focus on privacy, business formation, and then estate planning. In addition to that, they all become part of this whole where, and really, so much of that is really asset protection, right? You've got a business for asset protection. You've got an estate plan to save yourself from estate taxes or save yourself from additional costs. So all these things sort of come together. And I have the luxury of also being one of the owners of a company that Company Sage. Company Sage is the owner of Wyoming LLC Attorney, as well as LLC Attorney, as well as a number of other brands. And we have built those companies to help entrepreneurs get what they need, not get confused, really focus on the compliance aspect, and their business success platform is what we've really tried to build. And I think we've done an amazing job. That's part of what I do. But the other part of what I do is I talk to people about how we can come up with real world solutions to their entrepreneurial problems or their entrepreneurial goals.
Yeah. And because of you've been doing this for so long in this area of the law, when it comes to asset protection, can you share why this area of law is so important to you?
Because a single event could be ruinous. That's the real fear, right? You've built a wealth over a lifetime, and you have one bad thing that happens, right? The tragedies happen. Yeah. You own a real estate. You own a 20, 30 real buildings, and there's a fire, right? And people die. It happens. Do they get everything you've made up until that point? Are they able to take everything you have up until that point? Or you're well insured and you've isolated that risk into an LLC. That limits your downside if something happens. Obviously, we don't want anything terrible to happen to people, but there are, the plaintiff's attorneys, and there's people who will come after you for every penny you've made up until that point in your life. And so avoiding that downside risk when a bad thing happens, I hope it never does. I want you to be able to, and I want my clients to be able to limit that risk into business reality sized buckets of assets that are at risk.
Has like a friend or family ever been impacted so much that kind of drive you for this? Or it just kind of like, I just see this need and really want to go after it?
So it's sort of a sampling bias, right? When I talk to, and when I was a financial advisor, I talked to people and, they say they got lucky, right? You never had any lawsuits over this period of time? No, nothing happened, man. The people I don't get to talk to are the ones where they had the ruinous event. Right. And so it's been a bias there. Now I get to talk to people who oftentimes they come to me because something terrible has already happened. It's difficult in those situations. The horse has already left the barn. Yeah. But sometimes they're like, look, I realize I can't do anything. I'm not going to advise anyone. You're not going to hide assets. It's too late, right? What you can do is now you're like, try to settle, right? Try to get a settlement on this thing. But let's help you plan for the future. So there are plenty of people I speak to now where there is an event that is ruinous because they had all their eggs in one basket. But they are, I hope that people can listen to this and realize that it's pretty inexpensive and it's pretty easy, especially with our platform, to manage your LLCs and limit your downside to what it is you feel comfortable risking. Yeah. The great thing about America is that the states want to spur entrepreneurship. They want you to take risks. Okay. They've given you a vehicle, an LLC or a corporation, where you get to say how much you want at risk. I may be a millionaire. I'm only willing to risk $100,000 on this restaurant. You put $100,000 into the LLC. That's what, as long as you're doing everything right, that's what you have at risk. They want to spur entrepreneurship. If you don't have an LLC, all your chips are on their table, every hand, right? Who wants to operate that? You can't sleep at night when your downside is unlimited. It's limited to everything you own.
Yeah, that's a sad thing about it. And especially if we don't know what we're doing. And sometimes we don't know how to get there to extra funding. But this episode isn't about how to get the funding. It's about protecting your asset.
Exactly.
Have you noticed any trends or challenges that are in the asset protection area that a lot of people are coming across, or like that you've come across, that is actually shaping your work?
Yeah. Call it the scourge of social media. A lot of people, not attorneys, not really. I don't think they know what they're talking about. A lot of cases, some do, but some don't, and recommend strategies that are really, number one, ultimately going to be ineffective. Number two, are too complicated for their current situation. And people come up and I'm going to have a trust in the Cook Islands, and then I'm going to have a Nevis LLC, and then I'm going to have a Wyoming trust, and then I'm going to have this. And they're like, well, what's your net worth? And they're like, oh, I got $1.50 in the bank. And well, what's your liability? It's like, well, I've got a W-2 job. Like, tap the brakes, man. Okay. Right. And people, the analogy I use is people will say, I want the absolute best in asset protection. And I say, okay, if I were advising you on how to get the absolute best in home security, what I would say is we're going to build a 50-foot wall around the house. We're going to have a moat with alligators, right? And we're going to have guys with snipers and dogs that'll rip your throat out. You're going to be absolutely protected, but it's going to be tough to get the kids to school on time. You're probably going to get sued because of those dogs, and your Amazon packages aren't getting delivered. Instead, how about a Ring camera and a new lock, right? And like, oh yeah, okay, I get it now. If you're, if you are someone who needs, if you're Jeff Bezos, you need those things, right?
Yep.
You ain't Jeff Bezos, dude, right? So tap the brakes. Let's keep it simple, because there's actually a case that's going up before the Supreme Court right now, and it was a company. It was actually a company that was large, was in the real estate business, and they had their parent company, and they had all these subsidiaries, but the parent company was providing services. Basically, all the employees were lent to the other companies. They were sharing resources. They had accounting, they had separate bank accounts, but they were sharing resources, sharing expenses across all of them. And the court in that case said that there is no real distinction between these. They were too closely intertwined for us to respect the separateness of these individual entities. We'll see what the Supreme Court says, but it sent shockwaves because people think, I'll set up an LLC, I'll have 10 LLCs, each of them, does this, does that, the other thing, but they're not really getting the separateness because they're not separate businesses. And I had a call with someone today. They have 3 LLCs already. They made S Corp elections on all 3 of them. And one of them was doing exactly the same thing as another one, but they just wanted a different brand. I was like, this makes no sense. You're sharing the same employees across. Yeah, sharing the same employees. It should have been a trade name. It should have been a DBA.
Like a DBA,
that you use, right? Yeah. Single company with multiple lines of business. same type of risks associated with it. Do a single company, separate trade names. Multiple S corps. Dude, multiple S corps, you got to pay yourself a reasonable salary in each of them, and you're undermining your FICA tax savings, right? And I'm hoping, these sort of things I'm throwing out here, your listeners are familiar with these things, right? And so don't have multiple S corps. Sometimes it's unavoidable, right? You get different partnerships and so on. But for people, do your S corp, and then have it as a management company, or have multiple then subsidiaries where it's all flowing up. But then we have one reasonable salary, and we actually can deliver on the tax saving promise of an S corp. So don't make it too complicated to start. You can change, you can adapt, you can right size your business as things change.
So say somebody that is 45, they have a child that is about 21, and their child is looking to start a business. They themselves want to continue to work their 9 to 5 because they was like, they don't want to deal with the mess. What would you, from your expertise and your experiences, what would you tell them to do to start with? Say it's let's say it's a lemonade company. They just want to do lemonade.
Right. So put together a business plan, right? So that's one of the sort of extremes here. Maybe not as extreme as people who want to do something related to NFTs or crypto, but it's out there. Food service, number one, huge failure rate in food service. Licensing, you got to get your commerce, the commercial kitchen. You have to get those space available. You have to get permitting. You're going to have to. I've had clients. Well, where are they going to sell the lemonade? They're going to sell it in Whole Foods. Great. Whole Foods demands that you have your $1 million plus liability policy. Even getting a barcode. Do you know how complicated it is to get a barcode for a product that you're going to put in the shelves there? Do you know how difficult it is to get shelf space? So having, if my child wanted to start a business, right? Mm-hmm. Let's do a business plan and figure out what barriers there are to entry for it, what it's going to cost you to get there. And then let's just do a unit analysis in order to overcome your initial costs, the timing on this, all of that. How many units do you need to sell? Now, tell me how you're going to sell that many units, right? And so you, without discouraging them, make them do the homework, make them get into the details, create the business plan. And, whether it's a small business administration or local organizations that offer services on, starting your business. Again, cities and states and the like want to spur entrepreneurship, make them do that work. And then I would love to invest in your business. I want nothing more than for you to be successful. But in order to get there, we need to, I'm going to treat you like I would if I were investing in any other business. Make your pitch to me. Here's what it's going to need to be successful to make a successful pitch to dad. Right.
I like that. So what was the pivotal moment in your success?
It's funny. I was, my sister was down for Thanksgiving. And she brought a box of stuff. Here, I'm not keeping this stuff anymore. My mom had passed away. She had a whole bunch of stuff. And I found I had started my first company when I was 14 years old. It was called Happy Dog Industries. Nice. And I made skateboards. I was a skateboarder. And so I would buy skateboard. They were called blanks. And then I would I had a friend who worked at a skate shop. I'd go in and I'd trace the shape of the hottest boards that were out, and I would cut them out and sand them and, put some polyurethane on them and sell them for half the price of what the boards were selling for at the shop. Right. I loved it. Right. I didn't have an LLC. My liability was low, whatever else, but it was, I'm going to invest. And I bought, 20 or 30 of the blank boards. But then I got all that money back, and then I bought more, and then I bought a better saw, and then I bought this, and then I bought that. And I think I've been chasing that high from when I was 14 years old, right? You see, all right, there's some risk here. I got to put money out the door. But when the money starts coming in, that feels so good. And I have to say, my friends loved it, right? It was fantastic for them. They're getting the boards half price. Right. I made up this hat. I should pull out the hat. And I, had stickers, and, I made I was thinking about this. I hired a friend of mine to do a logo for the company. He was an artist. And I had no agreement with them. I'm not sure I have the right, the title, the intellectual property might not, it's probably not mine, right? There's the laws about that. I did not know what I was doing, but that was so fun. And really what I get to do now is eavesdrop on other entrepreneurs. I get to hear so many cool things that people are doing. And I'm sort of an empath, and I love to hear their stories and hear their success, and then help them really focus on that business. Again, that complication, if it's taking you away from delivering product to a customer, bringing in revenue, really think about, do I need this at this point in time? And the Cook Islands Trust, the Nevis, and all these other things, and multiple entities. And so tap the brakes. How are you going to be successful? And how can I help you be successful?
I like that. That might be the title of this show, just called Tap the Brakes. How can you be successful? Love it. So you work with many entrepreneurs and families setting up their LLCs and so forth. But one concept that I've heard you mention is that a business operation agreement is like a prenup. Can you explain a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Yeah, the operating agreement for an LLC is the document that will direct the management and operations of the company. And you want to go in, you hope for the best, but plan for the worst. At the beginning of a marriage and at the beginning of a business, it's fantastic. Everyone's excited. Everyone's going to participate. We're going to share the expenses in this way. We're going to divide up the profits in that way. We're not thinking about the breakup. And an operating agreement lays out the rules of the game. What happens if someone wants out? Do I have to buy them out? Can they just leave? Do they suppose they don't participate anymore? What is the authority of an individual? I had a terrible story. There were two guys. One of them is very well heeled, right? One guy's wealthy. The other guy's not so wealthy. They decided to invest in some real estate together. Do their first deal. Everything's fine. The wealthy guy goes and signs a contract for the LLC to purchase property, right? Puts money down on it, right? Put some earnest money down. And then goes to his partner. He's like, great news. I found this great property. You need to put in $50,000 into the LLC within a week. So I don't have it, right? So that would be something that would be covered in the operating agreement. What is the authority of a member? What is the authority of a manager? Any individual member or manager can spend up to $1,000 without the consent of the other members or managers, right? Anything above from 1,000 to 10,000, you require let's assume there's more than two members, you require a majority consent. Anything above 100,000, unanimous consent required, something like that. So you build that into the operating agreement so that everyone understands what they can and can't do. Failing to discuss it is one of the problems. And so the operating agreement is a point of discussion. We can discuss it. Let's get all this stuff out here. And sometimes I should have called today. I'm not sure they're moving forward with the business because there was something we came up with, and without getting into the details and giving up, attorney-client disclosure here, or I should say attorney-client privilege, they had not discussed a key point. We raised the key point, and they started arguing with each other. So, guys, our consultation's done. You need to work it out, and if you can come up with the terms, then let's move forward with this thing. But you're going to discuss it at the beginning, get it memorialized in the operating agreement. And if those bad things that you hope aren't going to happen, you have a roadmap for how you're going to handle them. That's what a prenup is, right? Yeah. We're going to be married. Everything's going to be great. As soon as we, if we have kids together, or I saw one, if we're together 15 years, then the prenup evaporates. Great. Okay, great. What if that doesn't happen, right? Then what we brought to the marriage, we're going to leave with, or, whatever you come up with. So it is a tough discussion, that prenup. The operating agreement can be a tough discussion as well. Usually not as severe as, the company's not going to move forward, but you're getting it out in the open. And then there's not going to be a surprise where I need to come up with a $50,000 check in a week, right? That kind of thing. So that's why the operating agreement is important. And one of the things that people miss, the operating agreement is a contract. Yeah. And it's a contract that's binding on the signatories. Okay. You and I enter into form an LLC. We sign our operating agreement. Somebody sues us, has no relevance. They're not a signatory to that agreement, right? Well, all we're going to get is, if they're trying to force the company to do something, right? There may be provisions, and in our operating agreements, the ones we provide to our formation clients at Wyoming LLC or LLC Attorney, there's provisions in there about what those parties, the people who are suing, can do. And so one of the most important provisions is that it's based on this idea of pick your partner, right? I can't have a new partner forced on me. That is critical to have in that operating agreement, that you can't go sell your interest to somebody else. Somebody can't foreclose on your interest. And now I've got Wells Fargo as my new business partner, or you sell it to your brother-in-law, right? And he's my new business partner. I didn't sign up for that. So really important concepts. And I used to do custom operating agreement drafting for people. A lot of work, thousands of dollars I would have to charge for it. And at the end of the day, 90% of them needed the same things. So working with the technology team that we have, we went through and we created call it a custom operating agreement. It's like mass customization. 30 or 40 questions that you answer. And then at the end, when you submit it, an operating agreement comes out that contains all these different provisions, right? And it's a great tool. It's available for the Wyoming companies. Most people, they have a Wyoming holding company, and that's where the ownership and the partnership is. But has been a fantastic, powerful tool for our customers to have those discussions.
Nice, yeah. Because I'm thinking now, because business and all of business is mostly like a relationship. At the end of the day, really.
Absolutely. It's a partnership. It's a marriage, man.
It's a marriage. Because people always argue with me when I keep saying, marriage is a business at the end of the day. Like, if the government wasn't involved, you know how many divorces will happen tomorrow? Right. It's crazy. But one of the things about this collaboration piece is that you had this permanent vacation to Colorado. I just wanted to know, what was that conversation like when you decide to settle in Colorado with your wife? Yeah,
well, I've resettled a number of times. I don't live in Colorado anymore. So I'm a Wyoming and Colorado licensed attorney. I live in Puerto Rico.
Sweet.
Yeah. So when the financial crisis happened, it was good timing. It was bad timing. My wife's mother had been a 25-year survivor of cancer, but it came back. And over that, the 2008, 2009, 2008 or 2009, don't hold me to the year, she came out and saw her mom, and her mom's health was really failing. And so she said, John, I need to be there with her. I didn't want to split up our family with the financial crisis. Things were, not going well. And I said, well, if I can find work in Colorado, then let's move there. And so we moved for family. I mean, that's the sandwich generation. My kids were, in first grade kindergarten, and then, an aging mother-in-law who I love dearly. And we made the decision for the good of our family, for that sandwich generation. And then, after that, all that time in Colorado, up until 2022, we were in Colorado. So, 14 or whatever, count the number of years, 13, 14 years. And then the business, the Wyoming LLC Attorney and the LLC Attorney business, we saw a great opportunity in Puerto Rico for a whole host of reasons. And because my kids were now gone, they went to college. And my wife and I, we were actually married in Puerto Rico. And loved Puerto Rico, loved the Puerto Rican people, loved the culture, and had been visiting it for, periodically over the years. We said, let's change. Life is short, man. Living in paradise is a good thing. Love the mountains, love Colorado, but I love Puerto Rico too. So,
are y'all going to move back for the kids, or you're going to stay there and this is it?
No, I love Puerto Rico. The kids are, one's graduated already, one's got an extra semester. And they are, they got their own lives. They come, who doesn't love to come? And everybody loves to come and visit us. Come on down. You are welcome. we don't envision leaving Puerto Rico. It's just, I mean, the weather is gorgeous. Again, people are wonderful. Go on the beach every week, and it's also super easy. So, it's a U.S. territory. We don't need it. You don't need a passport to have. So you have a passport, but easy flights to New York and Atlanta and wherever the heck else we want to go. So it's a fantastic place to live, and I don't envision. You never know what life's going to throw at you. There was a study that Harvard did, and it's called it was a longitudinal study. I forget who did the study. I apologize to the author of the study, but it was like they asked people like what was your life like 10 years ago, and they're like, man, it was crazy. It was so different from what my life is now. And then they asked them, what do you think life's going to be like in 10 years? They're like, yeah, it'll be exactly the same. Do you think they were right? They were not right. Right. It is and my 10-year cycles. It was fine. It was operations, and then it was finance, and then it was law. And we'll see where I am in 10 years. But go be a chiropractor, massage therapist, Pilates instructor. I don't know. It'll be something.
All right. So what advice do you give people who are hesitant to take that first step in securing their financial future?
No time like the present, right? You need to, be cautious. Don't, and dip your toe in. There's people, we dive all into it, 100% in, burn the boats at the beach kind of idea. When it comes to starting a business, I think it pays to step back, slow down, don't overcomplicate. And, one of the key things I've said is that let's assume everything goes right. You got a product you're going to create. How are you going to sell it? Ultimately, every business owner is in sales, whether they're selling themselves, whether they're selling a physical product, whether they're going to be selling a digital product, whatever it is they're doing, you are in sales. How are you selling that product? Forget about how you're going to get there. Forget about how you're going to create it, what advice you're going to get, what it is. How will you sell it? That in this age is the most difficult thing. That is the thing. I'm going to be an influencer. I'm going to start a podcast. How are you going to get followers? How are you going to get listeners? How are you going to get people who are willing to pay for your services, right? And so if you start out with that mindset that I will be a salesperson in this, that is a fantastic place to start.
In your experience, what mindsets or actions just to kind of help people move forward when they're starting a business or even just protecting their assets?
Right. Yeah. And so when it comes to starting the business, I like to focus on assume everything goes right. You can actually create the product. You can, your business structure is going to be fine. All that stuff's going to work. How are you going to sell the product? And you sort of realize as an entrepreneur, you are a salesperson first and foremost. You need to figure out how you're going to sell the units it's required to support yourself, support the business. What are your unit volumes going to be? Whatever your units are. If you're going to be an influencer, how are you going to get people to listen to your podcast or, subscribe to your feeds? Or if you're a consultant, how are you going to get those clients? If you're selling, widgets or a physical product, where are you going to sell it? How are you going to sell it? And think about the sales side first. And then all of those other things sort of fall into place. Those are the easier parts, I think, in today's economy, is how are you going to get eyeballs on your product? And then when it comes to asset protection, thinking about where your risks are, and do you have risks that you can't cover with insurance? Insurance is great. Hopefully not too expensive for you to obtain, but that's the first line of defense. When it comes to asset protection, figure out how you can cover yourself when it comes to risks, and then figure out what is it you're willing to risk on the business. That's where you get to, you're going to form that LLC. You're going to limit your downside risk by only putting into that LLC the amount that you want to or are willing to potentially lose. And so you sort of start out with, and I get, I don't know, not invited to some meetings, but I tend to be negative, right? And so when I talk to anyone, and I need to hold myself back to not be the most negative person in the room, but thinking about those negatives that are, if they're complete, it's a 1 in a million chance, the negative, then not worth thinking about, most likely. But there are things that are, there's the known unknowns that something bad could happen. If you own real estate, there could be an accident, right? Your tenants could get hurt. They could sue. Having the insurance, having the LLC protects you in that case. If you've got, you're selling a food product, something like that, someone gets sick from it. You've got your product's liability insurance, and then you've also got the LLC to protect you. So thinking about those downsides, but also, when you're starting, how am I going to sell this darn thing?
Yeah. And the beauty for those of you who are listening is that the reason why we can't give specific answers is because everybody's situation is going to be a little different. So remember, this is just hand waving information, meaning we just touching this, but you still got to do your research. Definitely talk to John and his team so we can get you a specific information that you need. So John, with that being said, we're going to slide into the third segment, which is the features. Right. And this one is where a lot of the people who are, we're listening about the asset protection, but there's something that you've mentioned about, which is called the 6 steps to asset protection. And how can we apply that to our businesses as an entrepreneurs, or even just for our families? Yeah.
And so I'm going to push back a little bit, and it's easy to digest, and I think it's good, for podcasts perhaps. But what are the steps to asset protection? We need to assess what your risks are, right? We need to assess what assets you have, and then come up with a plan that makes sense. That really is the key here. And I think there's too much, what does a lawyer do? Right. A lawyer hears about your situation and provides customized advice for you. So I think it's hard to say, those 6 items. And again, I don't want to. You need these 6 things, and I say, I see videos, and it's you need these 10 things in your LLC operating agreement. You're an idiot. That's not true, man. It's not true. That's not the way really this works. Right size it for your needs. We've got a great team. We've got great information on our websites. You have the ability to talk to attorneys. If you have, I go sort of the Occam's razor approach. Let's keep it simple at the beginning, and then we can scale later on. But we make you have these amenities, I call it, that you can talk to educated, our entity formation team, help you understand what the choices are. We've also, we have created inside of the client portal, the products that are there and the things that are there, the services that are there are ones you have a likelihood of needing. I find a lot of folks, there's 1,000 things and it's so cluttered with potential options. You don't know, do I need this thing? And so we've tried to really provide those things that there's a high likelihood that people will need. And then we've also created, packages or bundles and saying, okay, you're just starting out, keep it as simple as we can. Okay, you're sort of, thinking about the future. And this one is where, maybe you're in a more advanced stage. So I'm going to push back on a one size fits all approach. I think figure out how you're going to sell your product, right? Come up with a business plan, just like you said with a 21-year-old. Let's get you to think about how you're going to make this thing work, where the money's going to come from. And then an LLC is really the most basic thing. Protect yourself from having all of your chips on the table. That is a huge part. And then let's focus on simplicity in most cases, not getting too complicated. So I'm sorry if I'm disappointing you on the 6 things, but I think there's more to it to that, and I don't want to present a vision of if you do these 6 things, everything's going to be fine.
No, I appreciate it, because it's the 6 steps came from something you talked about like 4 years ago, which actually shows your growth in mindsets over the years. And I love that you actually are pushing back on that now, because the way of the internet, everybody's just putting things out there, and we just want to make sure that everybody's protected properly.
Yeah, properly is the key, and that don't overcomplicate it. And an example, people they're going to they have an idea. It's going to be the next Google. They haven't written a line of code. They don't have any investors. It's just them sitting in their basement. Okay. And so then they go and they form a Delaware corporation. They hire a corporate attorney. They do all these other things. They spend a whole lot of money doing it. No investors ever come, they never get the code actually written. So for those people, let's start a simple Wyoming LLC. Okay. It's going to be a single member LLC. We're not going to make a tax election on it. We're going to keep it simple. Hey, then you know what happens? You're making some traction, right? You're going to bring in a partner, right? Great. Let's turn it into a partnership, right? Then we say, hey, wait a minute. We're going to do friends and family. We're going to have some friends and family who want to invest. Is it a securities offering? We'll think about those things, but we're going to do a conversion to a corporation. And you can do that. You can make an LLC, turn it into a corporation, and we're going to change the tax status of the company with the IRS to C Corp tax status. Fantastic. Wait a minute. Things are going so well now. We've got venture capital investors who are coming in. You know what they want? They want you to be in Delaware. We're going to do a domestication of the company to Delaware, move it to Delaware. And then those investors are willing to come in. They really like the laws in Delaware. They like the Court of Chancery and all that stuff. But what we've done in the meantime is that initial stage, single member Wyoming LLC, inexpensive, easy to administer. Compliance is easy, right? They don't have any separate tax filing to do. And then they've scaled up and changed as the situation demands it. Maybe they do a couple of subsidiaries for different products, or they've got an IP portfolio or that all these other things. None of it is you set it and forget it. You're going to be constantly reviewing, adapting, changing as things progress. But if you start out super complicated, you're wasting money, you're wasting time in almost all situations. So keep it simple and then let it grow.
That's the best way to go.
That's what we can do, man.
Right. So this one is about you, though. So what areas are you focusing on in improving your life or your career?
Yeah. I love to do CLE, right? So continuing legal education. It's a requirement under the, if you're a bar admitted attorney. I love to hear people who are nerds on particular subjects and, diving into the CLE, and you've got an experienced practitioner telling you all of these different things, what they've learned. So I'm about asset protection. So what I love hearing, though, is I do CLE who are on the other side, the plaintiffs' attorneys, right? What do they do when they're evaluating? Do they take a case, right? They will search you. They will look into you. They will investigate your LLC. They'll see who the owner is. They'll do a search through one of the LexisNexis or Westlaw or something. They'll find out what properties you own, what properties you have owned, how big a mortgage you have. They may do credit reports. They may do all of these things. And so that guides the advice, those types of CLEs, understanding other people who may be trying to come after my clients, right? What those other folks are using. And then we can adjust our strategy in that same way. Listening to CLE when, the bankruptcy CLEs, that's a big downside, right? How can you protect yourself even in the event of a bankruptcy? I listen to CLEs on, domestic relations. So divorces, right? What happens? What do those cases look like? And so I like building this, and I'm not a divorce attorney. I'm not a bankruptcy attorney, right? I'm not a litigation attorney, but all of these things inform my ability to help my clients as I think about the worst case scenarios. The sky is falling. There's a hole in the ozone layer, whatever the heck else it is. So thinking about all of those things, there was we had talked briefly before at the beginning here, and we're talking about that Corporate Transparency Act, right? And there's a Texas court, and I just did a video, I put it on YouTube about this. Texas court put a nationwide injunction on the enforcement of that law. What happens now? And I watched some videos on YouTube and on TikTok and other places. You don't need to do it anymore. This doesn't exist. That's not correct, right? I think ultimately, without getting what my prediction is here, it's more nuanced than that. And so digging into those details, reading the underlying cases, doing the CLE, that's what I focus on, being better at what I do. It's rare I get a novel sort of question, but man, I love those novel questions. I love them. I love them. And luckily I make people tell me in advance what we want to talk about. And oftentimes I find myself, I'm going to do CLE on this. I'm going to do continuing legal education. I'm going to dig into the details, look at the case law right now, look at all of these things so that I can give my clients the most relevant and timely advice.
Yeah. And the beauty of having somebody that's curious about the product or curious about the industry, those are the type of people you really want to have on your team, regardless of your business, even if whatever business you're falling into, or even if your family, like, hey, family, we're going to start looking at how other families are dealing with their issues. We're going to go to, like you said, like the family courts or whatever, because you can go to court for free. So just kind of show up and listen to people's stories. It's much better than reality TV, honestly. I like it. So,
and it's sometimes I get to, peer into other people's problems and things, but other people's successes as well. And I learn from them. Maybe not as much as they're learning from me, but I learn quite a bit from them.
Awesome. Is there anything that you want to leave the audience with before we dive into the final 4 questions?
So no, let's dive into the questions. I mean, so my team came up with a code that's going to give your listeners, if they do have a need for an LLC, give them some discount. I don't know.
I have it. I guess.
Oh, okay. You
I was going to throw that
in about that, right? You got the code. All right, good. I want to make sure we talked about that. I don't know if I said it. I think I did about my own background. Yeah, we're fine. Let's go.
Okay. Let's run with it. All right.
Let's run with it, man.
All right. Number 1, what does wealth mean to you?
Wealth to me is having optionality to do the things that I want to do. Realizing that 10-year plan, what it looks like 10 years in the future. I don't know what that's going to be. I may want to change. I don't want to have anybody who can tell me, hold me hostage effectively in my own life. And part of that is, managing your expenses as your income rises. There's that tendency to let your expenses rise in line with them, but keeping it where you've got the comfortable lifestyle you want. And if something terrible happens, it's really not going to affect you. And I think that's what wealth is, where people and your lifestyle is not holding you hostage, or your boss isn't holding you hostage, or other people in your life aren't forcing you to do things that you don't want to do. That's wealth.
Nice. Number 2, what was your worst money mistake?
Doing that. So the 2008 financial crisis, I got too far out over my skis and was doing very well financially and let my expenses grow in line with my income. And then financial crisis hit and you see a 70% drop in income. You've got problems. And so not letting that happen again, that was in my youth. I wasn't that youthful as my 30s, but it is something I would never and have not let happen again, was just not having that optionality, not having the reserves. If your income dries up, how long could you survive without that income or with a significant decrease in income?
All right. Number 3, is there a book that inspired your journey or changed your perspective?
I love a Kahneman. He is the writer of Tipping Point and other books. His approach to thinking about how group dynamics and how things happen, how big things happen, has been really important for me to think about how I interact with others. He's got this concept of the maven, right? Those are the people who can be counted on to sort of spread the word about something. If you can get mavens to be fans of your podcast, of this podcast, if we can get mavens who love our product, sometimes they're called apostles. Those ideas, when the small things make a big difference, and you don't need to please everybody, but are you pleasing the right people, right? Do you have those apostles? Do you have those mavens out there who are trusted by many?
All right. Number 4, what is your favorite dish to make?
Oh, paella, for sure.
Nice.
Paella. So I got a paella pan 15 plus years ago. I got it at Goodwill. Massive
I didn't know they
paella
made.
pan like this.
I
Yeah,
didn't
it's
know that there was like a specific pan for paella.
Oh yeah. No, it's a big
What?
circular pan. It's shallow, and I
Yeah.
cook my paella on the grill.
Mhm.
And that's like the traditional way. I use orange wood charcoal, very traditional. It's about an hour of prep and then over the grill for an hour, and it's a showstopper. It's why, if I have a dinner party, I make the paella. It's a showstopper, and people are just absolutely floored with it.
Man. Okay. Well, tell me something new, Dan. I don't know about it. That's pretty cool. So we got the last question of the show, which is, where could people find out more about you?
Yeah. So our company is Company Sage. Company Sage owns LLC Attorney, Wyoming LLC Attorney, and some other brands, some other entity formation, business success platforms, entity compliance platforms. We have designed this thing. The attorneys have been driving force in designing this to really meet the needs of entrepreneurs. Our Wyoming website has fantastic articles, the overall majority written by attorneys about sort of niche topics. I think there's a lack of, a lot of the stuff on the internet is written by AI now. And so we attempt to be a source of truth. You check out our YouTube videos. I've done a bunch of videos there. So on my other side, I've got Feniak.com. So that's my law firm website where you can schedule consultations with me to talk about, instead of those 6 easy things, let's talk about some of the hard things. So between those two, if you really know what you want and know what you want to do, the LLC Attorney or Wyoming LLC Attorney brand websites are fantastic. If you're not so sure, I recommend calling in. We've got great teams who actually answer the calls. They're teams they're either in Puerto Rico or they're up in Scottsdale, Arizona, and Wyoming. They're sort of all over, but they know these things inside and out. Talk to them, see if they can help. And then if they can't, they'll say, you need an attorney. I'm not the only attorney associated with the brands. You need someone to do his IP, does the IP. You need someone who can, help with international tax. You need all these other things. We have attorneys that you can call upon without doing a retainer, without doing something complicated. Keep it simple and speak to people who are subject matter experts. So a lot of different ways to get in touch with us. It's not a one-man show here. Very large organization with amazing, talented, knowledgeable people. And I recommend you start with those resources.
Awesome. And for those of you who made it this far at the very end of the show, LLCattorney.com has blessed everybody who is listening to this is 100% off your formation fee for the initial filing. So to redeem it, all you have to do is enter the code WalletPod100. It's WalletPod 100. Put that in under the partnership code and like on the final checkout page, you're all good to go. So go ahead on and start your filing today. There's no reason why you can't start that process. So let's go on and get you started. Shout out to John. If you want to say like, hey, John, I signed up, hit me up when I'm ready. So let's make it happen.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for letting me babble on here. It was great meeting you the first time, and it's fantastic to meet you again. And we are absolutely here to help.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, John. And
thank you.
Many blessings to you and your family. I'll take care.
Thank you.
Welcome, Mary. Wrong one.
Hand wave.
Right. Well,
you're on speaker and it's coming through in here, honey. Okay.